Is there anyone in this room who has not done a SWISH? Everyone knows what the SWISH is, yeah? Yeah, from the practitioner training? All right, how do you do a SWISH? Well, you take a pig, do a thing, put the dot, and then you do a something. Oh yeah, the swish, yeah. That's great. Right. So, how do you do it?
Visual swish is to take a circumstance in which a person feels sort of incapacitated or not in control of their resources, okay, and then to build an image of themselves fully in control of their resources in the same situation, taking that image, shrinking it down to a little dot, bringing up the so-called bad image, and as the bad image decreases or fades away, the little dot expands, and then
Shazam! And then your eyes go boing. And
yeah, and then we do a little bit of future pacing, and also support for that by one way is to throw up like a deck of cards with this one image, and it falls down all around us.
Cool. Well, that's a pretty succinct explanation of it. Yes, very well done. Thank you, Paul. Wonderful. All right. All right. So, where do you use the swish? What's it good for? When someone's not feeling resourceful in response to what? To a certain outside something. Exactly. Excuse me, doctor. There are these. I got these certain outside somethings, and they're really bugging me, man. So these certain outside somethings in a swish we refer to as the cue or the trigger, right? There's something in the environment that puts you in a less than resourceful state. So you have a behavior that you don't want to do, or you have an emotional response that you don't want to have. So the big frame around the swish is you use it when you're doing a behavior, having a response that you don't want, right? All right?
How about state that you are living now and you don't want to?
Emotional response or state, right, yeah. For example, it could be you see an image of, you think about your boss yelling at you, and you feel bad, right? Or you feel, less than, or you feel devalued, or some unpleasant feeling. The feeling comes from the image, right? And so the swish is a way to use submodalities to affect a change. All right, what I'm going to have us do is we're going to do a quick swish with each other. I'll demonstrate it real briefly. We'll go over the fine points of the swish, and then you'll run your partner through it. Because if you remember in your practitioner training, you probably learned one of two different types of swish. One that you may have learned is called a size brightness swish, where you start off with the trigger, with a cue, the problem image, big and bright, and then the future self down in the corner, kind of dark, small, and they go whoop, they reverse, right? That's one standard swish. The other standard swish is a distance color swish, where you start off with a cue, big and bright and close, the future self out in the horizon, and then you interchange them. Future self comes closer and gets really colorful, right? Now, the reason that those are primarily taught in the practitioner training is just about everybody responds to those submodalities. In this last exploration that you just did, you discovered that different people have different responses to some submodalities. But just about everybody, if something gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and brighter, they're going to have a response to it, right? Or if it gets smaller and darker, they have a different response. How come you suppose this is? How come you think everybody is pretty much wired up like that? What could account for that? Survival.
I'm thinking the flight mechanism.
Yeah, sure. We learned it in the outside world. A lot of the ways that submodalities work on the inside are reflections of what happens on the outside, right? If we're on a street corner and we're stepping off the curb into the street, and we look over and there's a huge bus about 4 feet away coming at us, we have an immediate response, right? Hopefully. If, however, we're stepping off the same street corner and there's a bus 6 blocks away, the response is different. So the thing of how we use submodalities to structure our inner world is often a reflection of how we have experiences in the outside world. We just translate those internally. And that's what the standard SWISH relies on. So, is there anyone here that's got an unwanted response that they have from time to time, or a behavior that they do that they'd like to have choice in? If not, I'll call on somebody.
My fear on the chairlift.
All right, let's explore it, come on. Have a seat here in the SWISH chair.
Why did I speak?
Oh my gosh, now look, you're up in front of everybody. And look how high you are off the ground. Oh my God, yeah. Keep your eyes on the hood of the car, right?
There was no hood.
Oh, that's right, yeah, you were in the chairlift. Okay, so there was a certain experience that you had that, as you think about it now, being, going up on the chairlift, when it was a little bit spooky, what's that like for you? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Take a deep breath and come back to the room. All right, open your eyes. Now, I'm asking that question, why? Calibrate. I want to see what the, quote, problem state looks like. So I want to get the cues. So I have a sense of that, calibrated to that. And I want that to be different when I'm finished, right? That's why we calibrate. Now what I need to find out is what precisely she's doing on the inside to generate this response. So what was it that you were seeing specifically that creates this response in you?
It's an awareness of that depth of space below me
All right,
and around me, and that there's nothing supporting me.
okay.
So what I see is far away.
All right, so it's interesting.
It's not supporting me because it's far away.
All right, okay,
The ground is far away.
all right, gotcha. Okay, take a deep breath and just eliminate that. Now, this one's kind of interesting, Let's explore the submodalities here, because you heard her voice tone shift and her word shift too. She said that the problem was when it's far away, right? Now, and we were just saying that things are more intense when they're up close. So this is a little bit interesting here. Let's try this. Let's say that you're, well, like on this chair, you can look down and see the ground, right? Okay. What happens if, in your imagination, the ground gets further and further away?
I lose a sense of control,
Okay.
and I feel scared. Okay, I'm really feeling. What the submodalities are.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it fades in intensity.
All right.
I get a kinesthetic sense of having nothing beneath me.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, come back to the room. Now, what I'm doing is I'm exploring, and this is going to be a unique little exploration here because it's a little bit reversed. Actually, when it gets closer, this visual sense, when it gets closer, you feel better. Is that right? When you imagine it coming closer and
Yeah. For example, if I'm actually if I'm in a chairlift that's got an external, not a chairlift, but one
like
of
a
those,
car gondola.
yeah, I feel a fraction better.
Okay, a little bit better. Okay, great. All right, let's try this just for fun. Let's imagine being in the chairlift, right? You're seeing at that great distance, right? But now imagine that everything that you're seeing is getting really far away. I mean, it's just like you're kind of in a rocket ship or a spaceship, and it's just, it's like you're almost moving away from the Earth.
That's okay.
Okay, great. So I did this to see if she has sort of the, quote, normal response to distance. Does that make sense? In other words, if she floats way up out of the earth or whatever, a rocket ship, and it goes way far away, she says, well, that's okay.
I'm okay in a plane.
Great. And that, I remember her saying that. Right? So that if she gets a great amount of distance, then it's no big deal. It's just this one little area. I mean, there's a range here. Okay, good. So that's feedback that I need to know to predict whether or not a standard sort of distance color swish is going to be effective. All right, so I've got that information. Now we'll check it out. Here's what we need to begin to build. We're going to construct right here a hologram. Right? This is the new Anne. This is the Anne of the future. Right? This is the one that has the resources or the qualities, attributes, right, to deal effectively in a very resourceful way with, for example, riding a chairlift up the ski slope, right? So my question to you is, you begin to allow her to form right here in front of you. What qualities, attributes, or resources does she have?
She's extremely calm and confident.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of submodalities, that means she's able to, she's actually focusing her attention outside.
Okay, so she has the ability to maintain external awareness instead of going inside.
She's appreciating all that's around her.
All right.
Appreciating the experience, excited and enjoying the experience.
All right.
There's a kinesthetic thing.
Okay.
Total trust. Now, how is trust coded?
Well, again, the thing that when you're building the future self-image, you just need to have the representation, the you in the future, reflect these qualities, these attributes and resources. So she's one that trusts. You can tell just by looking at her that she has this innate trust of where she is and what's going on, or she wouldn't have done it in the first place, right? Right. So she has sort of an ecology frame. She wouldn't get on a rickety old gondola with, frayed strands of wire and like that. She knows better than that, but it's, if she's determined this is safe, she's got the resources to trust that, to maintain external awareness, to be excited, right, about the whole thing.
I've got a little bit of a problem about the resources to know that it's safe. Because that's the difference between trust. I mean, do I have the resources to know that the plane is safe?
Right. See, the thing is, Anne, you don't.
No.
We're talking about the future you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. It's a decision.
Right. So she has, let's build those in, the capacity to make really well-informed decisions about what's safe. That's what she has, right? If she had that ability, right, then when she got on the gondola or the chairlift, right? Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
Because it's about making the decision to trust this equipment.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do any research on that equipment.
Right, right.
But of course I've got well, one thing that happened yesterday, there was a car came round without any safety bar.
Right. Uh-huh.
And I looked at that, So it's a question of choosing to trust.
Right.
Regardless
Right.
of how much or how little
Exactly.
information I have.
Now, and the thing is, what she's giving me now is information about her current state, the way she is now, right? And what I'm asking for is an imaginary Anne. This is the future Anne.
So I'm looking at having a future Anne who makes that decision.
Who knows how to make it.
Okay.
Who knows how to make it.
Okay. Who knows how to make the
Right.
decision regardless of how much information she has.
Well, check her out. I think that I would make sure that you build in the quality that she gathers sufficient information,
Okay.
right, to be
Now
confident, right?
Now I get you.
And she knows what to do, people to ask, talk to, whatever she needs to do. And you can tell that she's willing to do that. She knows how to do it, to make that kind of decision thing up front. And once you could see her with these qualities, once she then got on the chairlift, wow. She goes external, she knows how to enjoy what's there, right?
Okay.
And enjoys the ride. Right? You got a sense of those qualities in her in the future, right? How does she look?
Good, happy.
Is she worth becoming?
Oh, definitely.
There you go, right? So what you want is the appropriate resources to the situation. You build those into a future image, right? Then you do kind of an ecology check. Are you willing to become more of this? And you want a congruent yes response because you want the future self-image to be really compelling, right? And this could be a skill she uses in lots of areas of life, but particularly in this one, all right? So just check her out. She's really worth becoming. Any other qualities you'd like to build in?
Sense of humor.
Okay. So you can see that little twinkle in her eye or whatever she might have that reflects that sense of humor. All right.
So when there's a whoops, when you hit the gong.
Yeah. Whee!
That'll be fun.
Okay, great. So that enjoyment of that kind of sense of excitement, right? Okay. You like her? All right, we're going to put her to work in just a moment. To begin with, what I'd like you to have her do is move way off to the horizon, way out there till size of a postage stamp or a little bit more, kind of dark. She's out there, but you can barely see her. Just leave her there for a moment, okay? And then we're going to have you be on the chairlift, right? Looking out of your own eyes and beginning to look down and notice that the distance. And just as you begin to feel that kind of queasiness or the unpleasantness, right, that whole image begins to zoom further away, right? In other words, you get even greater and greater distance, so that the distance goes further and further away as the future self comes zooming in, right, until you're looking right at her, right? And just connect with her for a moment.
And when you say I zoom away, I'm in it.
You're letting that whole image just go that away.
Including me.
Right. Actually, no. You want just the image to go. It's like you could imagine yourself being in, like a rocket ship kind of moving further away from it.
Okay.
So it just kind of zooms that way. And as it zooms this way, this future you is kind of faster than light. She's right here in front of you.
Can I have it on a string?
Sure, pull it. Pulley, rubber band, just sort of bing, there she is. Okay? So that's the setup, and once you've done that, then you can kind of blank the screen, right? Clear your visual field. She starts off at the horizon again. You can barely see her, right? You're in the chairlift, and then as you start, you in the chairlift, see that distance down there, all right? Get just some of the feeling. You start moving further away very fast, and then you pull, right? So it goes, and there she is in front of you.
I've got a little confused with
Okay.
your instructions.
Great.
Because you seem to give me one set of instructions and another set.
All right, so what is your understanding
My
of it?
understanding is that I send the positive hologram over there.
Right,
far away.
you start with it there,
I start with it there.
right?
And then I get into the other position of being in the chairlift.
Right.
Get the full sense of that. I pull that in.
Right, as the other one goes zooming
as
out.
The other one goes zooming
Right.
out. Yeah. And then the next thing was to blank the screen.
Right. So you bring that in, you got the future self, and you just kind of enjoy looking at her for a moment, and then you blank the screen. So you're kind of back in the room. It's a break state, okay? Because the setup's important. You always want to begin with the future self out there.
Okay.
She starts spontaneously out there. And then you feel yourself on the chairlift, right? And it's kind of like maybe these two little pulleys or something. You kind of go, whoink,
All right.
and then boom, you're there.
All right.
That's it, exactly that response.
Okay.
Okay? That's one cycle. And after each one, you need to blank the screen to do the setup again. And the setup is she starts off in the distance.
Right.
You start off in the chairlift, but you go, and
Okay.
there she is. Okay?
So how many times?
I'd like you to do it 3 times yourself real fast and blank the screen in between each one. Okay, go ahead. Then blank the screen. Yeah, great. Okay? Yeah, you can do it twice more, even faster. Just, it gets better and better. It's sort of like she's riding with you. You got it? All right. So, you imagine you're on the chairlift, and you've made the decision that it's safe, and that's cool. And you're on it, and you're going up there. And those babies lift way up off the ground. You're floating. Now, you were up there the other day. How is it now? And you're cruising along. And what if it hits a bump?
Funny.
Excellent, great. Well, now you can really anticipate it. I mean, sort of a future pace, because there are chairlifts around here, and you had done it the other day, and it was kind of, yeah, but now you can imagine doing it. And you have a sense of all the things that you can see and notice the next couple of times you do it that you weren't even aware of the first time, right?
The beauty of the mountain.
The beauty, and to appreciate it fully.
And looking back.
Yeah.
The two people I was with were wanting me to look back. Oof.
Yeah, well, look back and see.
Yeah.
Not only that, it's like the eye of the eagle. Look down and notice, you know, you're kind of flying and all the stuff down there that you can see all around you. Right? It's like you're 300, just awareness floating up the mountain. All right. Good. Look good from the outside. Great. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Great. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Let's backtrack the specific steps. And this is in your notebook, section number 1, when Jan Prince was here. I think it's on page 16 or 17. I did the distance color primarily. That's on page 17. The size brightness is on page 16. You can do either one of those in this first run through. What the first step is to determine the unwanted behavior or response, right? And this is primarily an emotional response to riding the chairlift. You got that? And then the cue picture, right? This is the image of seeing out of your own eyes, and in this case it was, you know, seeing a great height and having the unwanted response. It could be anything. It could be a cup of coffee. It could be the boss's face. It could be, you know, seeing your computer with a big stack of paperwork and you feel overwhelmed. Whatever the trigger is that generates the unwanted response. That's the cue picture. The fine point is the cue picture wants to be associated, first position, as if you're seeing out of your own eyes again, because this is what generates this association. So the cue picture is associated. Then you generate a self-image or future self picture, right? And the fine points of this is that it wants to be dissociated, right? Seeing yourself over there. And it also wants to represent qualities and resources, not specific behaviors, right? So in other words, if let's say you're working on alcohol, you want to, you know, cut down on beer consumption, and the trigger is a big, tall, cold glass of beer, and every time you see it, you just got to have it. And then when you're building the future self image, rather than seeing the guy or yourself having a cup of iced tea, right, which is a behavior, or a glass of lemonade, which is a behavior, you see the future self as having the resources to make intelligent choices, to respect their health, you know, respect the social situation with others, or whatever it is. The qualities are the attributes. Why do you use qualities, attributes, and resources rather than behaviors? To generalize more, absolutely. Otherwise, you're simply replacing one limited behavior with another limited behavior. Might be, in the long run, better off for you, but it doesn't generate choice, right? However, qualities and resources in the future self do generate choice. The sort of the implication of the SWISH is that the future self-image is sufficiently compelling and generative of these resources that the unconscious then tends to move towards that more and more and more, to enact those qualities or resources, right? Become better and better at them. So you generate lots of different behaviors, right? Okay, then you do, the setup is the cue, which is essentially this. You start with that, if you're doing, say, a distance color swish, you start with that close and really colorful. In her case, it was a little ambiguous at the beginning because she was saying, oh, it's distant, I can see the distance. But that whole thing was close and very present for her, right? So the cue starts off being close and colorful, and the future self image is in the distance, right, and dark, no color. That's the setup. Then the swish is you reverse these, boom, really fast. The future self image starts getting bigger and bigger and brighter and more colorful, and simultaneously the image of the cue, whether it's a glass of beer or a chairlift in the view, the cue begins to get further and further away and darker and darker and darker. And these two happen simultaneously. You don't do one then the other. They both happen at once, right? That's the swish component, and then the test How is it now when you think of a glass of beer or when you imagine yourself on the chairlift, right? And actually, we should put test-future pace. Be nice to have there. Okay, questions about the specific steps here or doing a swish with another person? Yes. Yeah, right. The point is that this part, the swish itself, when it goes like that, wants to be one direction, right? In other words, the future self comes zooming in as the cue goes out. And then you blank the screen. Sometimes people, if you don't give them that instruction, sometimes what they can do is bring it in like this, right? When they feel better, because that cue is way over there and the future self is here. But sometimes if they don't blank the screen, to set it up again, they go like this. And guess what happens then, right? The future sucks, man. I'm going to be like this forever, right? Literally. So you need to blank the screen in between each cycle because it's a one-way thing.
And you blank it and then you see the future self?
Nope. Once you blank it, the setup, every time you do the swish, the future self always starts at a distance. And the cue is always here, right? And it goes one direction. Future self gets bigger and brighter, cue goes further away. And you connect with that and then blank the screen. And then you do it again.
Okay.
Right?
So the blackout is to redo again.
Exactly, to redo the setup, which is, the setup is this. And the reason you blank the screen at break state is to make sure it goes in one direction only, so that they're not going back and forth with this response. All right? And ideally, the rule of thumb is you want to make sure that they've gone through this like 5 times quickly. Depending on their flexibility, like in Anne's case, I kind of talked her through it twice, then she did it 3 or 4 times on her own. You need to simply track on your partner to make sure if some people enjoy being talked through it all 5 times. Other people, once they get the idea, they can do it themselves. If they do it themselves, the one thing that you want to make really sure of is that they're doing the setup appropriately, then they're doing this little break state, right? Blanking the screen before they repeat the swish. Right? And again, at this point, for sure, you want to calibrate. And you also want to calibrate to the future self to make sure that it really is compelling. I think in your notes, the fine point is here, after they've generated the future self, you want to do an ecology check. Does any part of you object to becoming more of this? If so, you can build in more resources, right? And then finally, a test and future pace of the whole thing. Questions about it before you run a partner through it? Okay, you've got 2 options for a, quote, standard swish. You can use size and brightness or distance and color, whichever you prefer. Let's see, we'll target around 15 minutes or a little bit less for each person so we can finish this round of the swish. We'll do it with groups of 2 with a partner, right? Each of you has 15 minutes to run the other person through a standard swish, and then we'll have a brief discussion before we break for lunch. If you run into any snags, raise a hand. Myself or one of the coaches will be there. Okay, find a partner and swish them.